Hey, welcome. So this video is about managing distress. Stress being anything that's overwhelming, that's really uncomfortable, a feeling or an experience that feels unsafe, and therefore our system goes into like a fight or flight mode. The other thing that happens is often with distress where we get really activated and then we go into a freeze. So we might actually shut down. So inwardly, we're actually sort of panicking, but outwardly, we look totally still. So I'm presenting a simple 3-step system for working with and managing distress. And the foundation for this is first finding just a feeling of safety, finding a place where we're feeling less overwhelmed. We call these resources. So what are our resources? How can we cope with whatever overwhelming experience we're having? So I'm going to offer a very simple one, which is just moving your awareness, all your attention into your feet. And the reason this is helpful is because all of our overwhelming feelings, they usually happen in kind of this area. And when this is so much, this is all that's happening, when we just shift our awareness into our feet, suddenly we're paying attention to this a little less and it's a little less overwhelming. So the first resource is to you could try it right now. Move your awareness into your feet. Feel the sensations in your feet. And just doing this, it's kind of the first step to taking our awareness out of this area, out of the experience of overwhelm, and grounding it. There are a lot of resources that we could use, and I really encourage you to find your own and what works for you. For example, phoning a friend is a resource. Journaling is a resource. Some of these things we can do, and sometimes when we're in a situation, we have very limited options. So this is going to be about finding things that we can apply in any moment. So like I said, bringing your awareness into your feet is one. And another is just to feel the space around you, to just look into the space around you and expand your awareness. So again, when we're in distress, our awareness is usually just caught up in whatever's happening. And as we expand it, suddenly whatever's happening here is less overwhelming. So there's a few more that I'd like to explore. Another one we could do is we could take our hands, we can put them on our chest and abdomen. You can try this now with me. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable. And just notice how this makes you feel, how this changes your experience. So for most people, this is comforting. They find it relieves the distress a bit. For some people, it's actually the opposite. It actually activates the distress. So this is why I'm really saying you have to find what works for you. Another one along these same lines is to take your hands, put one underneath against your ribcage, underneath your arm, and the other one over top. So like you're kind of holding yourself or hugging yourself. And you can feel the sense of containment that whatever uncomfortable experience you're having, before it might have felt so big, and now you're just kind of putting your hands around it and you're offering yourself a container to hold this experience in. So again, if your energy is like really expanded and overwhelmed, this might be really comfortable. But some people, they might feel really contained, and that could be the cause of distress, and this might actually make it worse. So it's really about trying different things, figuring out what works for you. If you have a solid meditation practice, coming to your breath might be a good anchor, a good resource to lower your level of distress. The more you come back to your breath over and over, the more comfortable you get to just be with the breath, the more of a resource it's going to be, the easier it's going to be to come back in moments of distress. So you can try these techniques out and see what works for you. And we're going to practice a few towards the end. But the idea is to figure out what we find soothing. What brings our distress level from like an 8 or a 9 down to like a 7 or a 6. These resources can be really helpful in lowering our distress a bit, but they might not actually overcome the distress or transform it in the long term. And that's what these next steps are for. So the second step is actually going into the distress, to open to the sensations, to be with it. And again, that might be scary. This is why we use a technique called titration. We're titrating, which is essentially moving back and forth. It's just swinging, it's like a pendulum swinging back and forth. And what we're doing is we're finding our resource, what makes us feel safe, and we're going there, finding a sense of safety, a sense of being okay, and then slowly moving back into the distress, into the uncomfortable feeling, and being with the discomfort, practicing being uncomfortable. So healing and growth and all of this processing of feelings is all around how okay can you be to be uncomfortable. And in fact, this is one of the best skills we can develop in life, is being okay with discomfort. Doesn't mean you're complacent in your discomfort. Doesn't mean that at all. You can still do whatever you can to make things better, but to an extent, discomfort is unavoidable in life. So the better we are, the more comfortable we are at being with discomfort, just being open to the sensations of discomfort, the easier our life is going to be. The practice here is finding that sense of safety, finding that sense of okayness, and then slowly creeping towards the discomfort, opening to it, being curious about the sensations of distress and discomfort, and just working our way to being okay. This is really exposure therapy. And exposure therapy, what we're doing is we're taking something that makes us feel really uncomfortable, something that makes us distressed, that brings up fear or anxiety, and we're being with it and being with the discomfort, and over time the discomfort level lowers. So for example, let's say you have a fear of spiders. Let's say spiders give you a lot of fear and anxiety. At first, you're going to practice just thinking of a spider. Notice the distress, notice the discomfort, and then just be with those sensations, again, in a safe space. And then you go to the next step, which is maybe looking at a picture of a spider. And then again, looking at it, noticing the feelings, being with them. And if you do this, if you practice this over time, you rewire your system to be okay with these feelings, because a lot of the time it's just not the image that we're afraid of, but when we see something that is distressing, our system spikes. It goes into this fight or flight, and that spins us out. Then we're in this oh no, catastrophizing type mind, and it just makes it more and more difficult. The resistance of all of these experiences, all discomfort, tightens up, and it makes this inner feedback that just makes everything worse. So what we're doing is we're slowly, gently, carefully going into the feelings of discomfort, going into the distress and saying, hey, I could be with this, even if it's just for a few moments, and then going back to our place of safety. So this is what titration is all about, and it trains our body, it rewires us to be more and more okay and less afraid of all these situations. So the third step in managing distress is deconstructing our experience. We're looking at what's actually happening in our experience. Usually when we're in these states of high distress, there's not a lot of awareness of what's happening. It's just happening. We're just in it. So what we're doing is we're looking at, okay, where's the feelings? What's happening in the body? Where's the activation? What does that feel like? Is there an openness to it, or is there a clenching around it? So it's being really aware, very mindful, very curious about the body sensations. And then also the thoughts. What's happening in our mind? Are we replaying uncomfortable or scary experiences visually? Or maybe we have some inner talk telling us, oh no, this is bad. So it's bringing all of these things into awareness and tracking them individually. And as we track them, they become less intense. So when we're experiencing a feeling of distress and negative thinking together as one, it's so overwhelming. But if we can track the body sensations, the visual images, and the inner self-talk in three separate kind of dimensions of being, they're going to be far less overwhelming. So let's do a practice. So if you're not feeling any sort of stress or anxiety or anything now, you may have to evoke it, or maybe it's just not a good time to practice, but we can just imagine it anyways. You can learn the tools when you're in a place where you're feeling pretty safe, and essentially wire this into your understanding. And then when you feel distress, you'll have the tools ready to go. We're going to start with some deep breaths. And you can close your eyes if that's comfortable. And again, if you're feeling stress, anxiety, sometimes closing the eyes helps, and sometimes it makes it worse. So just notice, what effect does this have on your experience? Does closing the eyes help? Does it make you more relaxed, or does opening them make you feel a little bit more grounded? So do whatever is comfortable. I usually like to close my eyes so I can get more focused on my inner world. So if that's comfortable, we're going to start with feeling into our feet. Just feeling that sense of safety in our feet. Like a groundedness. And here you can use any other resource you'd like, and you could even imagine a scenario where you feel safe. Maybe you're in a physical space that you feel very safe in, or maybe you're with someone who makes you feel safe. But if there's any sort of imagined scenario where you feel safe, you can imagine this. And it kind of creates this inner sense of safety, even if it's only subtle. So we're just really paying attention. What feels safe? What feels not safe? Bringing more awareness to this whole thing. What we have to be careful about is that as we bring awareness to this, it can first amplify things. So maybe we're used to avoiding certain feelings, and then suddenly we look and we see them and they're so big and overwhelming. And this is why we develop our resources first. This is why we look, okay, if it gets overwhelming, you go back to the feeling of safety, whether it's a memory, a mental image, or the feeling in your feet, or even just the space, being aware of the space around you, the room around you, and the feeling of spaciousness around you. Continuing with the meditation, the awareness in the feet, feeling the space around you. Just feeling a general sense of safety. Just trying to get a sense of what that feels like. Again, we can try putting our hands on our chest and abdomen, or wherever feels comfortable. And now we're going to move into the discomfort. So find if there's any discomfort, any stress, distress in your body. Just moving into the discomfort, really looking at it, finding where in your body are you experiencing stress, distress, discomfort. If you're not feeling anything and you want to give it a shot, you can evoke a memory, something that happened in the past, even when you were a child, where you really didn't feel safe. Just notice what that brings up in your experience. And if it's too much, come back to the feeling of safety, come back to the feeling in the feet. And just moving in and out as our experience allows us, as our level of distress or safety allows us. Moving into the discomfort, being curious, feeling it, and then moving back to the safety. And noticing what thoughts are present. You can look at thoughts as visual images. So if there's anything that we're visualizing, that we're seeing in our thinking space, what thoughts are associated with the distress? Are we catastrophizing? Are we imagining a bad situation? And then noticing the inner self-talk, the inner kind of audio space. What do we hear? What is the inner self-talk saying? What is it telling us? And then coming back to the feeling space. Just noticing, again, what we're feeling in our body, where the sensations are, where they're coming out of and where they're expanding into, or maybe there's a sense of a contraction, we're contracting down. Just being really curious about how we experience the sensations in our body, what the texture of the sensations are. And then finally, because we've been doing this practice, we're going to end with something nice to kind of clear the slate, to a little palate cleanser of a practice. And so imagine some time where you felt good, or somebody who it feels good to be around. One visualization you could use is holding a baby that's happy, like a little smiling baby. Or it could be a puppy dog, or just whatever brings about good feelings for you. And try to locate where that good feeling is in your body. And maybe you barely even feel it, but just trying to get a sense of this feeling of goodness, this feeling of joy, even if it's very subtle, or even if it's just more of an abstract sense of the feeling. And can we just allow ourselves to feel okay, to feel good in this moment? Can we just open to these nice sensations? It's kind of a gift to ourselves, an act of compassion. Just wishing ourselves to be well, wishing ourselves to feel okay. A lot of people find this difficult, and that's totally normal. It's totally okay. Just bringing the acceptance there. And then slowly coming back, opening your eyes, coming back to the space. Thank you for practicing with me. This is just a very brief introduction. This is something that you can do a lot and get really deeply into. So I really encourage you, if you found this helpful, to continue to explore these tools, to continue to explore these types of practices and figure out what works for you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment. That helps me out. I have a lot more videos to come, so stay tuned, and thank you again.